Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be doing our weekly update on the bull market support band. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Also, check out the sale and the premium list if you want to know how I am navigating these markets. Now, where are we today? Well, we had another weekly close, and another week in the green, right? This is 4 weeks in a row now, back to back to back to back. We had 11.5%, followed by 12.5%, 10%, and then a more modest 7.25%. And then, of course, we've already started off this week up about 1.5%. So Bitcoin has just been on one hell of a rally over the last 4 weeks. Now, we have a new weekly candle, therefore, the 20-week moving average, the 21-week EMA, they're both updated. If you're curious where they currently are, the 21-week EMA is coming in at a very modest $41,159, and the 20-week SMA is coming in at $42,872. Okay, so what you notice is the 20-week SMA is still moving down, which is what we would have expected to happen as we've been discussing. It's quite simple to see that, because if you go back 20 weeks, you can see that the price that we're replacing was essentially at around 55, 56K. And as long as we're putting in weekly closes below that, we would expect the 20-week moving average to continue to decrease. Okay, but it is starting to, it really might start to level off here as we continue this move, because if this move continues like this, then we're going to be trading in some of these prices for prices that are just marginally below it. So I would expect the 20-week moving average to continue to decrease very, very slightly, but unless the price of Bitcoin were to suddenly have a huge shift back to the downside, it's probably not going to decrease all that much more. Now, with that in mind, the 20-week moving average is now at 42.9K. And therefore, over the last week, it only, it didn't even move down $1,000. Right? I don't remember exactly what it was. But I think it's only moved down like, a few hundred, $500, $600 or something like that. So not a huge change in the 20-week moving average. So what does that mean? Well, if we get another week or two of the 20-week moving average decreasing, then we could see it going all the way down to maybe 42K or 41K. Could that be a future level that we test? Now, that's an interesting thought, right? It's an interesting thought. The reason it's an interesting thought is because that has been this very important level over here, right? Where we really took a while to get past. And you can sort of see that the 20-week moving average and the 21-week EMA, they're sort of converging on that line. It might be an area to watch in the future, considering at some point, you would imagine that at some point Bitcoin will have at least one or two corrective weekly candles, and where will those corrective weekly candles take us? Now, the counterpoint to that is it doesn't actually have to. Okay, we don't have to test the 20-week. I know we would like to test the 20-week, or at least I would like to test the 20-week, but we also know that it doesn't actually have to test it. And how do we know that? Well, again, we can just go back in time and look at other times where we didn't actually test the 20-week moving average, right? I mean, we have tested it plenty of times. During the last move, we went above the 20-week, and we ultimately had a really great test of it over here. Over here, we came back down to it, and we failed to hold it. We came back down to it over here, and we failed to hold it. But this move above it, we didn't really come back down to the 20-week, and we didn't come back down to it until, half a year later. So the idea that we have to test the 20-week in the next few weeks is not necessarily true, because we know, if history is any indication, it is theoretically possible for us to just continue along and not look back. I think one of the advantages of looking back is it sort of distills a lot of fears in the market, right? It makes okay, things are really bullish, because not only have we gotten above this level, but we've been able to stay above it and then hold it as support for quite a while, and then it provides a lot of confidence in the market, right? A ton of confidence in the market. So right now, with the price of Bitcoin at 47K, 48K, we in fact are, more than just a few percentage points now. I mean, now we're looking at around 11% or so above the 20-week moving average, given the move that we've already had, that has continued to the upside, and the fact that the 20-week moving average continues to go down. So they're continuing to separate. So again, the price of Bitcoin is now over 10% or so above the 20-week moving average. Now remember, one of the things we discussed yesterday is, and the reason why we want to keep an eye on the 20-week is not because we have to test it. It's just that we can look back and see that every September, right, September of 2020, and then if we go back to say September of 2019, every September we've tested the 20-week. Going back for 5 years. That was September right here, and then all the way over here, back right here. This was also September. And we also tested it in this September, but from underneath, right? That was our bear market when we tested it from underneath. So out of the 1, 2, 3, 4 times that we've tested the 20-week from being above it in September, we held it as support 3 out of 4 times. Okay, 3 out of 4 times over the last several years. And I mean, if you go back even further than that, I'm not even sure. I'm honestly not even really sure where we were. It looks like back in 2015, we were actually coming up from underneath the 20-week moving average and sort of testing it right there again and actually then we actually got back above it going into October. But I do think this is an interesting phase of the market because we are just coming off a pretty explosive move to the upside. And if we know anything with Bitcoin, is that momentum is really strong, right? And it drives a huge part of the market is that momentum. And that momentum can go longer than a lot of people think it can. And then, right when someone FOMOs in who, they didn't maybe scoop up the dip or whatnot, then it gets one of those, those pullbacks for a few weeks. It can really shake some people out. We had a similar move back over here. So we certainly aren't saying that it has to happen. Okay, this was never our contention. But if history is any indication, we want to keep an eye on the 20-week sort of starting to find a bottom. And it might find a bottom before it starts curving back up at around 41, maybe between 40 to 42K or so, 40 to 42K. And the reason why that's important is because as it starts to go back up, well, eventually we'll test it again. And at this rate, it seems like we're more likely to test it in the 40, into the 40 to 50K region than any other region. So this is something we want to definitely keep an eye on as we continue to navigate this market cycle. Now, obviously there's a ton of indicators that we always can look at. There's short-term TA that I know a lot of people are covering right now. But in general, I think it's a good once a week to take a step back, just look at the weekly candles, look to see where we are. Are we above the 20-week? We are. Okay, we are above the 20-week. We're seeing altcoins move. This is fairly standard for the altcoin market, for the altcoins to make significant moves when Bitcoin's above the 20-week and not putting in new all-time highs. It's not, it's going up fairly quickly, but it's not, it's not putting in all-time highs, right? It's not going up like 10,000 a day or anything crazy like that. But we will sort of see if this thing plays out again, because what we've seen every September before is us test the 20-week. Now you could argue that that's related to to the rainy season and whatnot in China. Now that the miners aren't there, or at least a lot of them left, it's hard to know exactly what will happen with that. But I know a lot of people have attributed it, the September month being not so great for Bitcoin. A lot of people have previously attributed it to the miners in China. We'll see if we get that same type of effect this year, given that circumstances have changed over the last several months with regards to that. But let's give it a few more weeks and see how things play out. Because, of course, if we do come back down and test the 20-week moving average, we sure as hell are going to want to hold the line, right? We really would like to hold the line and not get pushed back down below it again. Because you see what happens when you get pushed down below it, right? You spend 3 months playing in the sandbox. And I like playing in the sandbox, to be completely honest, because again, when you're below the 20-week, it tends to be a great time to DCA Bitcoin. These are the prices when everything's super bearish, and most of the people who bought up here have already left the market and they want nothing to do with it anymore. These are always the times to buy, right? When the market when market sentiment is generally bearish, that's when you want to buy. And then you just sort of wait, right? And you wait, and if we hold the 20-week as support, then the people who bought down here are going to be sitting a lot prettier up here, okay? The people who say, wait for us to break this all-time high of 64K to buy Bitcoin, if that were to happen, right? They're already looking at a much lower ROI because they're essentially waiting for it to go up 2x from this area before they even get into the market. Because of course there is a significant amount of people that just think the market cycle top is already in. I certainly don't. I do think we will ultimately trend higher to well over 100K. But of course, time will ultimately elucidate the truth. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and remember to check out the premium list. You can find a link to the sale and lock in the lower rate at the lower price in the description below. So make sure you guys check that out. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe, click the bell icon to turn on your notifications, and I will see you next time.